Okay, so first I want to tell you a little bit about the EarthView ArtView article. This basically describes the process that we originally did with our small silk paintings, and that's taking the GIS satellite image and focusing on describing that or abstracting that down into littler parts. And this article talks about a great deal about the process that we used in using the Gouda to draw the lines and make those sharp differences in colors, and using the paint to dye the silk. And some of the techniques that we employ as far as art goes is scale. We scaled it down from, we had a big picture and then we scaled down just a portion and then blew that back up. Abstraction using the salt and, oh, that's texture. Abstraction would be like taking a great deal of information. You can't describe each little piece of that satellite image, but you kind of do just vague kind of gestural areas that give you enough information to describe what it is. An emphasis, like what areas did you focus on? Were you focusing on like Josh's had like a coastline and kind of like a little inlet? That's the emphasis portion. And the use of color. How did you use your color? That was pretty much the article.
All right. Well, content. We basically, again, we took a picture and blew it up. So this is 1,000 times bigger or something like that. Excuse me. Then we took the alcohol and used, or that was actually salt solution. So we took salt solution, we sprinkled it on and spread the ink around, which we got our hues from darker to lighter, and then from our tints. Sorry, that was tints. Sorry. Darker to lighter is our tints, and then our hues were mixing of the colors. So, yeah, our abstracted form was blowing up the picture.
We also chose the lower portion of this image because it had the most variation in colors, from your bright tints to your darker shades, and so it had a lot of variety in color. And we really liked the direction that the lines provided for the ice crystals.
We also had some science content too. We talked about all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of science topics that could be discussed through creating an integrated project like this. But most notably were cohesion, adhesion, both of which lend directly to capillary action. So cohesion, as we all reviewed, was the tendency of similar objects to cling to one another. Adhesion through dissimilar objects doing this. And capillary action unites those two, and the ability of a liquid to flow through narrow spaces without the assistance of or in opposition to external forces like gravity. So those concepts apply directly in the art techniques we used, and they're also just a good way to talk about some of these science concepts and art setting.
We discussed a few ways that we could use this type of project in the classroom. In terms of science content and our ice crystal example, you could use it as an intro to study maybe trapped atmospheric gas in Antarctic ice. You would be able to study the concentration of CO2 of the past in that ice, which you could study like prehistory, climate conditions, stuff like that. You could use ice crystals to study the phases of matter. So in terms of this project, we did a solid. You could have students paint one for liquids and gases and plasmas. We use it as maybe like an intro to a fun unit on cryogenics, which has a lot to do with the temperature at which liquids freeze entirely. In ice cream, the sugars in ice cream actually prevent the water from freezing entirely. So in terms of cryogenics, you could use this to maybe invent some sort of substance to inject into human cells to prevent the ice from freezing and exploding cells. So that'd be some sort of inquiry lab that students could do in the classroom using this concept of ice freezing. Things that you use this project for, that's not just related to the science part, is maybe a cumulative event for a unit where you could just be doing like what we're doing in class, where we're working on some sort of concept and then using this and a report following it to maybe show your knowledge of that. Maybe just as an enrichment activity. You know, if students are doing projects, doing classwork, and they're getting done early, they could work. They can maybe start a project like this. And also, like a community building activity, you could start this at like the beginning of the year and have it go through the entire year. Students working together, learning new things, that not just science, learning art things together, and doing some community building activities.
So overall, it was a really fun project. Actually, I like the science art integration. Something I'd like to try and use. And before we let you go, we should probably also let everybody on the camera know that our names are John LeValley.
Teresa Gilfillan.
Ryan Magrum.
Joshua White.
One more thing. At the end of the article, and I starred this because I wanted to quote it, so it was a beautifully written article. But, I was really nervous about doing this whole, collaborating with science, it made me kind of nauseous, actually. Because I'm not really skilled in scientific processes or adhesion and cohesion. I tried to bluff my way through that. But anyways, I thought this quote at the end was really nice. It says, and it's talking about collaborating and making meaningful lessons with art and science. And it says, and while science might be conceived of as an objective search for universal laws, and art is a subjective exploration of personal understandings of phenomena, the truth is much closer to a blending of the two disciplines. So I really like that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.